Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world of gleaming Cadillacs, manicured lawns that stretch like putting greens, and living rooms where every cushion knows its place. We're talking about 1950s America, but not the America most people remember. This is the version lived by the wealthy, the ones who summered in Newport, wintered in Palm Beach, and somehow made it look effortless even when nothing about their lives actually was. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing someone in Kansas City is settling in at 10 p.m, while someone in Seattle is winding down after midnight. Now go ahead and get comfortable. Dim the lights if you can. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft white noise. Wiggle down into your blanket and let yourself sink into this moment, because tonight we're exploring a version of America that existed in country clubs and corner offices, in homes with servants' quarters and dining rooms that seated 12. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to wake up in a house with 5 bedrooms you barely used? What did Sunday morning look like when you had a cook, a housekeeper, and a gardener who arrived before dawn? How did it feel to walk into a department store where the staff knew your name and your dress size? What was it like raising children in a world where summer meant sailing lessons and winter meant skiing in Aspen? Did money actually buy happiness? Or did it just buy better curtains and quieter anxieties? And just like that, it is 1955. The coffee is already brewing downstairs, prepared by hands that are not yours. The morning paper sits folded on the breakfast table. Your car, polished to a mirror shine, waits in the circular driveway. And the day, like every day in this gilded world, is just beginning. You wake slowly, sunlight filtering, through custom drapes that someone else opened at precisely 7:30. The bedroom around you is larger than most people's entire apartments, decorated in soft blues and creams that a professional designer selected after 3 consultations. Your bed, a 4-poster monument to comfort, is dressed in Egyptian cotton sheets that were changed yesterday while you were at lunch. The room smells faintly of furniture polish and fresh flowers, an arrangement of white roses your housekeeper refreshed this morning before you stirred. The ceiling above you is high, detailed with crown moulding painted in glossy white. A crystal chandelier hangs centered over the room, catching morning light and scattering it in soft prisms across the walls. You do not turn it on during the day. There is no need. The windows are large enough to flood the space with natural brightness, filtered through fabric that costs more per yard than most people spend on an entire bedroom set. You stretch beneath the covers, feeling the weight of a down comforter that seems to float rather than press. The mattress beneath you is firm but yielding, custom made to specifications you do not entirely remember giving. Someone measured, someone consulted, someone decided, and now you sleep on something engineered for perfect rest. Whether you actually rest perfectly is another question. On the nightstand beside you sits a small silver tray. Your housekeeper has already been here, moving so quietly you never heard her. There is a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice, beads of condensation forming on the outside, a folded linen napkin, a single rose in a bud vase. This is her routine, her way of saying good morning without speaking, and you have come to expect it the way you expect the sun to rise. You sit up, the headboard cool against your back, and take a sip of the juice. It is cold, sweet, flawless. Somewhere downstairs, breakfast is already being prepared. The coffee is brewing, the table is being set. Your life moves forward on a schedule you barely have to think about because other people think about it for you. Your slippers wait beside the bed, exactly where you left them last night, though you suspect they have been straightened, adjusted slightly to sit at a more pleasing angle. You slip your feet into them and stand, crossing the room to the windows. Outside, the lawn stretches green and perfect, trimmed yesterday by a gardener who arrives Tuesdays and Fridays. The hedges are shaped, the flower beds mulched, the driveway swept clean of leaves. It looks like a painting of a home rather than a home where people actually live. You move toward your dressing room, a space almost as large as the bedroom itself. Inside, your clothes hang in silent rows organised by season and purpose. Day dresses, cocktail dresses, gowns for formal evenings, skirts and blouses and suits, each on its own padded hanger, each protected from dust and sunlight. Shoes line the shelves below, paired and waiting. It is an embarrassment of choice, and yet most mornings you reach for the same few pieces, the ones that feel safest, most familiar. This is how your days begin, not with effort, but with ease, not with chaos, but with quiet order. You're awake, cared for, surrounded by beauty, and yet standing in your dressing room with a closet full of clothes you barely wear, you sometimes wonder what it would feel like to wake in a smaller room, in a simpler bed, and have to decide everything for yourself. Breakfast is not something you prepare. It is something that appears, elegantly arranged on bone china, in the sunroom overlooking the back garden. You descend the curved staircase in your dressing gown, slippers whispering against hardwood that gleams like still water. Your cook has prepared exactly what you prefer: fresh grapefruit, perfectly soft-boiled eggs, toast cut into triangles, coffee in a silver pot that stays hot through refills you never have to request. The morning newspaper waits, ironed flat to prevent ink on your fingers. The sunroom is your favourite space in the house, all windows and light, furnished with white wicker chairs and glass-top tables that reflect the garden outside. Plants hang in ceramic pots, their leaves glossy and green, tended by the same gardener who manages the grounds. The air smells faintly of soil and citrus, the grapefruit already sectioned and arranged in a crystal bowl that catches the morning sun. You settle into your chair, the wicker creaking slightly under your weight, and reach for the coffee. It is strong, hot, prepared exactly the way you have always taken it. 1 sugar, a splash of cream. Your cook knows this. She has known it for 6 years, ever since you hired her away from another family with the promise of better wages and her own quarters. She never asks how you want your coffee. She simply delivers it, perfectly, every morning. The grapefruit is cold and tart, each section separated from its membrane with a knife sharper than you own. You eat slowly, savouring the bitterness, the way the citrus wakes your mouth before the coffee smooths it. The eggs arrive next, brought by your housekeeper who moves soundlessly from the kitchen. They sit in porcelain cups, the tops neatly sliced off, the yolks still runny in the way you prefer. You dip your toast and watch the yellow spread across the white china. Outside the windows, the garden is waking. Dew clings to the grass. A cardinal lands on the bird bath and dips its head. The roses along the fence are beginning to bloom, their petals tight and new. You could walk out there after breakfast, stroll the stone paths, cut a few stems for the dining room table, but you probably will not. The garden is beautiful precisely because you do not interfere with it, because professionals shape it into something worthy of admiration from a distance. Your husband joins you halfway through breakfast, already dressed for the office in a dark suit and polished shoes. He kisses the top of your head absently, pours himself coffee, and unfolds the newspaper you've not yet touched. The business section. Always the business section. He scans headlines while chewing toast, his mind already at work though his body is still here. You do not speak much during breakfast. There is no need. The silence between you is comfortable, familiar, the silence of two people who have shared thousands of mornings and no longer need to fill them with conversation. He reads, you eat, the coffee stays hot, the sun climbs higher in the sky. When he finishes, he He folds the paper precisely and sets it beside your plate. He checks his watch, a gold piece that belonged to his father, and announces he will be late tonight. A client dinner. You nod, unsurprised. There is always a client dinner, a late meeting, a reason to stay downtown. You will eat alone, or with the children if their schedules allow, and he will return after you have gone to bed smelling of cigars and scotch and the world beyond these walls. He leaves, and the house seems to exhale. You finish your grapefruit slowly, savouring the quiet. This is your time, the hour between his departure and the start of your own day, when the house belongs to you alone. Your home does not clean itself, though it often feels that way. By the time you finish breakfast, beds have been made, bathrooms scrubbed, yesterday's mail sorted into neat stacks. There is a housekeeper, a cook, a gardener, sometimes a chauffeur, depending on the season and your husband's business demands. They move through your home like quiet currents, present but unobtrusive, speaking only when spoken to, disappearing into their own quarters when the work is done. You know their names, ask politely about their families, and write generous Christmas bonuses, but the distance remains. Your housekeeper is a woman named Margaret, middle-aged, sturdy, with hands that know how to coax shine from silver and order from chaos. She has worked for you for 8 years, arriving each morning at 6:30 and leaving after dinner is cleared, the kitchen restored to gleaming neutrality. You have never seen her sit down in your home. She moves constantly, dusting, polishing, straightening, her presence marked more by results than by sound. She knows things about you that no one else knows. She knows which dresses you wear most often, and which hang untouched for months. She knows you sometimes cry in the bath and leave the tap running to cover the sound. She knows your husband sleeps in the guest room more often than he used to. She empties the wastebaskets, changes the sheets, sees the evidence of your life, and says nothing. This discretion is part of what you pay for. Your cook is younger, a woman named Helen who came recommended by another family at the club. She cooks the way you imagine people cooked 50 years ago, from instinct and practice rather than recipes, measuring flour by feel, tasting, sauces with a wooden spoon she keeps tucked in her apron pocket. Her meals are unfussy and perfect. Roast chicken that falls off the bone, mashed potatoes whipped with cream and butter, vegetables steamed just until tender. She knows you're watching your figure and adjusts portions accordingly, serving you less than she serves your husband, less than she probably eats herself. The gardener is an older man, stooped and quiet, who speaks mostly to your plants. He arrives Tuesdays and Fridays, works for 4 hours, and leaves the grounds looking like something from a magazine. You've tried to learn his name, but it never sticks. He is simply the gardener, as essential to your home's appearance as the paint on the shutters. On Thursdays, a laundress comes to collect linens and return last week's load, everything pressed and folded and smelling of starch and lavender. You do not do your own laundry. You have not done your own laundry since you married. Your clothes go out dirty and return clean, hanging in your closet before you notice they were gone. This small army moves through your days, anticipating needs before you voice them, solving problems before they become visible. A light bulb burns out and is replaced before you notice the darkness. The refrigerator empties and refills. Flowers wilt and are swapped for fresh arrangements. It is easy to believe the house runs itself. That order is the natural state of things when the machinery of labour is so carefully hidden. You are kind to them, you think. You say please and thank you. You give time off for family emergencies. You pay on time, above the going rate, and provide references when they leave for better positions. But you also know that kindness does not erase the fundamental truth. They work for you, not with you. They call you ma'am. They enter through the back door. They eat in the kitchen while you eat in the dining room. The distance is built into the architecture of the house itself. Sometimes you wonder what they say about you when they are alone in their quarters. Whether they laugh at your worries, your complaints about trivial inconveniences, whether they resent you or pity you, or simply see you as a job, a paycheck, a set of preferences to be accommodated, you will never ask. That is not how this works. Getting dressed is an event that requires planning, precision, and at least 45 minutes. Your walk-in closet is organised by season, by occasion, by colour. Dresses hang in protective garment bags. Shoes rest in their original boxes, tissue paper still tucked around the heels. You select a day dress, something appropriate for lunch at the club, perhaps a pastel shirtwaist with a cinched waist and a full skirt that rustles when you walk. Underneath goes the architecture, the girdle, the garter belt, the stockings with seams that must run perfectly straight. You stand before the full-length mirror in your slip and consider your options. The mirror is 3-panelled, allowing you to see yourself from multiple angles, to catch imperfections you might otherwise miss. Your figure is good, maintained through careful eating and the occasional exercise class at the club, but it requires engineering to look the way fashion demands. Natural is not enough. Natural must be shaped, smoothed, lifted, and cinched. The girdle goes on first, a sturdy garment of elastic and boning that compresses your stomach and hips into the smooth silhouette the dresses require. You step into it and work it up your legs, wiggling and pulling until it settles into place. It is not comfortable. It will never be comfortable. But comfort is not the point. You can barely breathe deeply, cannot bend at the waist without effort. But when you smooth your hands over your stomach, it is flat, firm, exactly what it is supposed to be. Next comes the garter belt, a delicate thing of satin and rubber, clipped around your waist and hanging down in straps that will hold your stockings. You sit on the edge of the bed to roll the stockings up your legs, carefully, slowly, making sure the seams run straight up the back of your calves. Crooked seams are a social sin, the kind of detail other women notice and remember. You check in the mirror, twisting to see the back of your legs, adjusting until the lines are perfect. The brassiere is next, structured and pointed, designed to lift and separate in a way that creates the fashionable silhouette. You fasten it in front and twist it around, adjusting the straps until everything sits where it should. Over this goes a fresh slip, nylon and lace, cool against your skin. Now you are ready for the dress itself. You select a pale yellow shirtwaist, crisp cotton with a Peter Pan collar, and a belt that will emphasize your cinched waist. You step into it carefully, zip up the side, and tie the belt with a neat bow. The skirt falls to mid-calf, full enough to move gracefully, but not so full as to be impractical. You smooth your hands over the fabric, checking for wrinkles, making sure everything lies flat. Shoes come next. Heels, always heels, even for daytime. You select a pair of cream-coloured pumps with a modest 2-inch heel, conservative but elegant. Your feet slide into them with a familiar pinch of leather that has not quite broken in. You will wear these for hours standing at the club, walking through shops, and by evening your feet will ache in a way you have learned to ignore. Jewellery is a careful balance. Too much looks gaudy. Too little looks careless. You fasten pearl earrings, small and classic, and add the strand of pearls your husband gave you on your 5th anniversary. A slim gold watch. Your wedding ring and engagement ring, of course, the diamond catching light as you move. Nothing else. Elegance is restraint. Makeup takes another 15 minutes. Foundation smoothed over your skin. Powder to set it. A subtle blush. Eyebrows penciled into careful arches. Lipstick in a shade called Coral Dawn, applied with a brush and blotted once on tissue. You study your reflection. You look polished, put together, appropriate. You look like the woman you're supposed to be. Finally, your hair. It was set yesterday at the salon, rolled and dried under a hood dryer until the curls were tight and perfect. This morning you need only brush it gently into place, smooth the sides, and secure it with a few pins. You spray it lightly with hairspray, enough to hold against the breeze, but not so much that it looks stiff. You step back and examine yourself in the three-way mirror. Front, side, back. Everything is in place. You're ready to be seen. This is what it takes. An hour of effort to look effortless. A process so routine you barely think about it anymore. And yet without it, you would feel naked, unprepared, not quite yourself. The country club is less a place and more an institution. A sprawling estate of tennis courts, golf greens, and a dining room where everyone knows everyone and strangers are politely discouraged. You arrive late morning, stepping out of your car into air that smells of fresh-cut grass and chlorine from the swimming pool. Inside, the dining room hums with the quiet chatter of women in gloves and men in blazers. You're greeted by name, led to your usual table by a window, handed a menu you barely need because you always order the same thing. The club sits on 50 acres of prime real estate, rolling hills that were farmland before someone with vision and money transformed them into this carefully manicured paradise. The main building is Georgian brick, symmetrical and solid, with white columns framing the entrance and a circular drive where members pull up in cars that gleam like jewellery. A doorman in crisp uniform opens your car door, greets you by name, and directs the valet to park your Cadillac in the shade. Inside, the air is cooler, conditioned to a perfect 70 degrees that feels shocking after the humid warmth outside. The foyer is marble-floored, echoing softly with footsteps and murmured greetings. A chandelier hangs overhead, crystal and imposing. Oil paintings of founding members line the walls, men in dark suits with serious expressions, watching over the legacy they built. You sign the guest register, though you're not a guest. You are a member, have been since your husband's firm made partner, and membership became not just possible but expected. The register is a formality, a way of tracking who comes and goes, though everyone already knows. The club is small enough that arrivals are noticed, absences remarked upon. The dining room stretches long and bright, windows on 3 sides overlooking the 18th hole and the pool beyond. Tables are set with white linens, fresh flowers in low arrangements that do not obstruct conversation. The silverware gleams. The water glasses are already filled, ice cubes floating and catching light. A pianist plays softly in the corner, something classical and unobtrusive background music for background lives. The hostess, a woman named Dorothy who has worked here longer than you have been a member, smiles and leads you to your table. It is always the same table, by the window on the left, with a view of the tennis courts where white-clothed figures move in careful choreography. She pulls out your chair, unfolds your napkin into your lap, and promises your waitress will be right with you. You settle in, smoothing your skirt, and glance around the room. You recognise everyone. There is Mrs. Patterson, whose husband owns the largest car dealership in the state. Mrs. Coleman, whose daughter just married into old Boston money. The Hendersons, lunching together in rare daylight, their marriage famously cold but impeccably maintained. Everyone nods, waves, mouths hello across the room. This is your world, these people, this place. The menu arrives though you do not need it. You order what you always order, the chicken salad on butter lettuce, dressing on the side, iced tea with lemon. The waitress writes it down with a smile that suggests she already knew. She brings bread in a silver basket, warm rolls with butter pats stamped with the club's insignia. You take one, more for something to do with your hands than from hunger. The club is where deals are made, marriages arranged, futures decided over cocktails and handshakes. It is where your husband plays golf with clients, where your children take swimming lessons and learn to play tennis with proper form. It is where you come to see and be seen, to maintain your place in the careful hierarchy of who matters and who does not. It is less about leisure and more about belonging, proof that you have arrived and intend to stay. Lunch is theatre. You sit with the same women you lunched with last week, and the week before, women whose husbands run banks and law firms and manufacturing companies. The conversation flows in predictable channels. Children's schools, upcoming charity, events, who bought what house in which neighbourhood. Beneath the pleasantries runs a quiet current of competition, who has the better decorator, the more accomplished children, the husband whose name carries more weight. You smile, sip iced tea from a sweating glass, and participate in the careful dance of appearing interested without appearing eager. Barbara arrives first, as she always does, punctual to the point of anxiety. She air kisses your cheek, settles into the chair across from you, and immediately launches into a story about her daughter's piano recital. The girl is gifted, apparently, though you heard the same story last month and suspect giftedness is more aspiration than reality. You nod, make appropriate sounds of admiration, and note that Barbara's dress is new, probably Saks, definitely expensive. Patricia joins next, trailing perfume and apologies. She's always late, always flustered, always blaming traffic or her housekeeper or some small domestic crisis that kept her. You suspect she is late on purpose, a way of suggesting her life is fuller, busier, more demanding than yours. She orders white wine though it is barely noon, and laughs too loudly when the waitress raises an eyebrow. Evelyn is last, gliding in with the serene confidence of someone who has never doubted her place in the world. Her family has money that predates the Depression, the kind of wealth that does not need to announce itself. She wears understated elegance, a simple dress, modest jewellery, nothing flashy. This restraint is its own form of peacocking. She can afford to be subtle because everyone already knows. The conversation begins with safe topics. The weather, unseasonably warm. The new landscaping at the club, attractive but perhaps overdone. Someone's recent trip to Europe, described in just enough detail to inspire envy without seeming boastful. You contribute where expected, offering opinions that mirror the group's consensus. Agreement is safer than disagreement. Harmony is valued above honesty. Then Barbara mentions that the Caldwells are building a new house in the development past the reservoir. 6 bedrooms, she says, eyes wide, and a pool, indoor and outdoor. The table goes quiet for a beat, absorbing this information. The Caldwells are new money, newcomers trying to buy their way into circles that prefer inherited status. The house is excessive, everyone agrees, though no one says so directly. Instead, Patricia murmurs that it sounds lovely, her tone suggesting the opposite. Evelyn simply smiles, sips her water, and says nothing. Her silence is the loudest condemnation. The food arrives, delivered by waitresses who navigate the room with practiced efficiency. Your chicken salad is exactly as you ordered it. Pale, cold, arranged on lettuce leaves like something from a still life. You eat slowly, fork pausing between bites, because eating too quickly suggests hunger, and hunger suggests need, and need is something women of your class are not supposed to display. Conversation shifts to children. Barbara's daughter, the pianist, Patricia's son applying to boarding schools, Evelyn's twins, both accepted to prestigious summer camps. You mention your own children briefly, carefully, offering just enough detail to participate without bragging. Your son is doing well in mathematics. Your daughter has been invited to join the youth symphony. These are accomplishments worth noting, but not celebrating too loudly. Modesty is expected, even when it is false. Beneath the polite exchange runs the true conversation, the one conducted in glances and pauses and carefully chosen words. Who is struggling financially? whose marriage is rumoured to be failing, whose daughter was seen with an inappropriate boy. The gossip is never cruel exactly, but it is relentless, a way of policing the boundaries of acceptable behaviour. You contribute cautiously, aware that anything you say might be repeated, reshaped, used against you in some future conversation where you're not present. Your home sits on 2 acres in a neighbourhood where every lawn looks professionally maintained because they are. It is a colonial revival with white columns, black shutters, and a circular driveway that can accommodate a dozen cars when you entertain. Inside are rooms you rarely enter, a formal living room reserved for guests, a library your husband uses for business calls, a music room with a piano your daughter practices on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The house is beautiful, expensive, and often feels too large for the 4 of you who live there. You pull into the driveway mid-afternoon, the Cadillac's tyres crunching over gravel that was raked smooth this morning. The house rises before you, white and stately, looking exactly like the architect's rendering you approved 5 years ago. It is the kind of house that appears in magazines, that stops people driving past, that announces to the world that whoever lives here has succeeded. Inside, the air is cool and still. The housekeeper's been through, and everything is in its place. The foyer gleams, the chandelier sparkles, the flowers on the hall table are fresh. You set your purse on the console and slip off your heels, feeling the cold marble under your stockinged feet. The relief is immediate. You wander through the first floor, passing rooms that exist more as ideas than as functional spaces. The formal living room, where you entertain perhaps 6 times a year, sits pristine and untouchable. The furniture is upholstered in pale blue silk that cannot withstand real use. The coffee table holds art books no one reads. The lamps are decorative rather than practical, casting light too dim for reading. It is a room for impressing, not for living. The library is your husband's domain, wood-panelled and masculine, lined with books he bought by the yard to fill the shelves. Law texts, histories, classics he has never read and never will. His desk sits in the corner, massive and imposing, covered with papers and files he brings home from the office. You rarely enter this room. It smells of leather and pipe tobacco, distinctly his. The music room holds the piano, a baby grand that cost more than some people's cars. Your daughter practices here under the instruction of a stern woman who comes Tuesdays and Thursdays and makes disapproving sounds when the scales are not perfect. The room echoes when it is empty, sounds bouncing off hardwood floors and tall ceilings. Sometimes you sit here alone and press a single key, listening to the note fade into silence. The kitchen is large, modern, fitted with every convenience, and yet you almost never cook here. That is Helen's space, and you feel like an intruder when you enter, searching for a glass of water or a snack between meals. The counters are clear, the appliances gleaming, everything put away in cabinets you could not navigate without help. Upstairs, the bedrooms stretch down a long hallway. Yours and your husband's. 2 for the children, a guest room that hosts visitors perhaps twice a year. Each room is decorated, complete, perfect. Each could appear in a catalogue, and yet they feel sterile, like hotel rooms waiting for guests who will never quite settle in. You climb the stairs slowly, hand trailing along the banister. At the landing, you pause before a window overlooking the back garden. The lawn stretches green and perfect. The flower beds are mulched and weeded. The hedges are trimmed into neat geometric shapes. It is beautiful, undeniably. But it is also lifeless, too controlled to feel natural, too perfect to feel real. This house was supposed to represent arrival, success, the culmination of everything you and your husband work toward. And it does. But standing in the hallway of your beautiful empty home, you cannot shake the feeling that you're living in a museum dedicated to someone else's life. Your children are well-behaved, well-dressed and well-scheduled. They attend. The best private schools take piano lessons and tennis lessons and French lessons, spend summers at camp in Maine and winters on the ski slopes of Colorado. You see them at breakfast, sometimes at dinner, and on Sunday afternoons when the family gathers for appearances. A nanny handles the daily routines, homework, baths, bedtime stories. You love them deeply, but parenting in your world is less hands-on and more supervisory, checking report cards, attending recitals, ensuring they are being moulded into the kind of adults who will fit seamlessly into this world you have built. Your daughter is 10, serious and careful, with dark hair that she wears in braids the nanny fixes each morning. She reads above her grade level, practices piano without being reminded, and speaks to adults with a politeness that borders on formality. You are proud of her, though sometimes you wish she would misbehave, show some spark of rebellion that would prove she's still a child and not a small adult in training. Your son is 8, energetic in the way boys are expected to be, though his energy is carefully channeled into acceptable outlets. Soccer in the fall, swimming in the summer, he collects stamps, a hobby you encouraged because it seems educational and quiet. He keeps them in albums he shows you occasionally, explaining the countries and dates with an earnestness that makes your chest tight. They call you mother, not mom or mama, just mother. This formality was not something you requested, but it emerged naturally, perhaps from the nanny's influence, perhaps from the general tone of your home. Sometimes you wish they would run to you with scraped knees, bury their faces in your skirt, need you in the immediate physical way young children need their mothers. But they do not. They are learning to be independent, self-sufficient and proper. The nanny, a woman named Ruth, has been with you since your son was born. She's efficient, calm, unflappable in the face of childhood, chaos. She knows their routines better than you do, knows which foods they dislike, which stories they want to read, what soothes them when they are upset. You're grateful for her, and also quietly resentful, aware that she occupies a space in their lives that perhaps should be yours. Mornings are rushed, orchestrated chaos. The children wake at 7, dress in uniforms laid out the night before, eat breakfast prepared by the cook. You appear briefly, kiss their foreheads, ask about their plans for the day. They answer politely, finish their toast, and are shuttled off to school by Ruth or the chauffeur depending on the day. You wave from the doorway, watching the car disappear down the drive. After school there are lessons, Monday is piano, Wednesday is tennis, Friday is French conversation with a tutor who comes to the house. The children move from activity to activity with the efficiency of small executives, their time parcelled out in careful increments. Free time is rare, and when it exists, it is often structured. Board games with educational value, books from an approved list, play that looks productive. You attend their events when your schedule allows, recitals where your daughter plays scales with focused intensity, tennis matches where your son chases balls with determined concentration, school plays where they deliver lines with careful enunciation. You sit in audiences with other mothers, clap at appropriate moments, and feel a complicated mix of pride and distance. They're becoming exactly what you hoped they would become, and yet you barely know them. Dinner, when it happens as a family, is formal. The dining room table, proper place settings, conversation that follows rules, no elbows on the table, no speaking with your mouth full, no topics that might upset the digestion. Your husband asks the children about school. They answer briefly, correctly. You add gentle questions about friends, hobbies, feelings. They respond politely but reveal little. The emotional distance feels vast. Bedtime is Ruth's domain. She bathes them, helps them into pajamas, reads stories in voices you can hear faintly through the floorboards. Sometimes you go up to say goodnight, tucking blankets and kissing foreheads. They smell of soap and toothpaste and childhood. Your daughter asks if you will be here when she wakes. You promise you will, though mornings are unpredictable. Your son asks if you're proud of him. Always, you tell him, and mean it. Shopping is not something you do out of necessity. It is an experience, an afternoon event that begins with lunch and ends with packages delivered to your home before dinner. You visit the same stores, Bergdorf Goodman, Saks, boutiques where the sales associates know your name, your size, your preferences. They greet you with coffee, show you items they have set aside specifically for you, and never mention price because price is understood to be irrelevant. You try on dresses in private fitting, rooms, turning before three-way mirrors while someone adjusts the hem and promises alterations by Friday. The drive into the city is pleasant. The Cadillac gliding smoothly through traffic, your chauffeur navigates with practiced ease. You sit in the back seat, gloves in your lap, watching the suburbs give way to taller buildings, denser crowds, the energy that hums through Manhattan like current through a wire. By the time you arrive at Fifth Avenue, you're ready to step into a world where beauty is currency and everything is for sale. Bergdorf Goodman rises like a temple at the corner of 5th and 57th, its windows dressed in tableau that blur the line between retail and art. You step through the brass doors into air scented with perfume and possibility. The main floor stretches before you, marble and mirrors and counters displaying handbags, scarves, gloves arranged like precious artifacts. A saleswoman approaches immediately. "Mrs. Morrison," she says, smiling with genuine warmth. "How lovely to see you." She is perhaps 50, elegant in a black dress and pearls, her hair set in perfect waves. She has been working this floor for 15 years and remembers not just your name but your preferences. Pastels over jewel tones, silk over synthetics, classic cuts over trendy styles. She guides you toward the elevator, asking about your family as you rise to the 3rd floor. The dress salon. Here, the atmosphere shifts from bustling to serene. Thick carpet muffles sound. Mannequins posing gowns. Racks hold dresses organized by size and designer, each garment sheathed in protective plastic. Your saleswoman has already pulled selections, hanging them in a private fitting room that feels more like a small apartment than a dressing space. There is a sofa, a chandelier, a 3-way mirror lit to make everyone look their best. She brings you coffee in a china cup, asks if you need anything else, and discreetly withdraws while you undress. The first dress is pale pink, silk, fitted at the waist with a full skirt that rustles when you move. You slip into it, and the saleswoman reappears to zip you up, adjust the shoulders, stand back, and assess with a practiced eye. "It is lovely," she says, "but perhaps the blue would be more striking with your colouring." You try the blue, then the green, then a cream-coloured cocktail dress with delicate beading at the neckline. Each time the saleswoman offers gentle commentary, steering you toward choices that flatter, away from those that do not. She never says you look bad. She says the dress is not quite right, the fit is not doing you justice. Perhaps we should try the next size. After an hour you have selected 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and a handbag you did not come for but cannot resist. The saleswoman writes everything up on a slip of paper, never mentioning the total, and promises delivery by Thursday. Alterations will be made, hems adjusted, waists taken in, everything will arrive perfect, ready to wear. You sign the slip. Your husband's account will be charged. This is understood, expected, never discussed. Money flows invisibly through these transactions, charged to accounts, paid by check, settled by secretaries and accountants you never meet. As you leave, the saleswoman hands you a small gift, a sample of new perfume wrapped in tissue paper and ribbon. A token of appreciation, she says, though appreciation for what is unclear, for shopping, for existing, for being the kind of woman who buys 3 dresses in an afternoon without asking the price. You take the gift, thank her, and step back onto Fifth Avenue, where your chauffeur waits with the car idling at the curb. Hosting a dinner party is a production that requires days of planning and a staff working in perfect synchronization. The dining room table, extended to seat 12, is set with your best china, crystal glasses that catch the candlelight, and linen napkins folded into precise triangles. Your cook has prepared a menu you selected together: chilled consommé, roast beef with Yorkshire pudding, asparagus tips, a moulded salad that shimmers on its plate. You greet guests in the foyer, accept their coats, guide them to the living room where cocktails are already being poured. The preparations began 3 days ago, when you sat at the kitchen table with Helen and planned the menu. You consulted cookbooks, considered dietary restrictions. Mrs. Henderson does not eat red meat. Mr. Patterson is watching his salt. And balanced elegance with practicality. The meal must impress but not intimidate, demonstrate taste but not pretension. Yesterday the house was cleaned top to bottom. Margaret polished silver until it gleamed, washed crystal by hand, ironed linens with starch that made them stand crisp as paper. The dining room was transformed from everyday space to stage, the table extended with leaves you keep stored in the basement, chairs borrowed from the breakfast room to accommodate the full party. This morning flowers arrived from the florist. Low arrangements of roses and hydrangeas in cut crystal vases, designed to allow conversation across the table without obstruction. You placed them yourself, adjusting stems until the composition looked effortless, as if the flowers had simply agreed to arrange themselves beautifully. By 5 o'clock you are dressed in a cocktail dress of deep emerald silk, cinched at the waist and falling to mid-calf. Your jewellery is understated. Pearls, of course, and your grandmother's diamond bracelet. Your hair was set this afternoon at the salon, your nails polished pale pink. You look exactly as a hostess should, elegant, composed, ready. Your husband pours drinks in the living room. Manhattans for the men, gin and tonics for the ladies, though Mrs. Patterson always requests sherry, which you keep stocked for precisely this reason. The bar cart is fully equipped, bottles arranged like soldiers, ice bucket filled and sweating slightly, cocktail, napkins embossed with your monogram. The doorbell rings at 7, precisely on time because your guests are the kind of people who arrive when expected. You smooth your dress, put on your hostess smile, and open the door to the Hendersons. Martha air kisses your cheek, hands you a small gift, chocolates from the shop downtown, and sweeps past you into the living room where your husband is already offering drinks. The other guests arrive in quick succession. The Pattersons, the Colemans, the Bradshaws. The house fills with voices, laughter, the clink of ice and glasses. You move between groups, ensuring everyone has drinks, introducing people who do not know each other, smoothing conversational awkward moments with practiced ease. Hosting is performance, and you have rehearsed this role for years. At 7:30 you announce dinner. Guests drift toward the dining room, admiring the table settings, the flowers, the glow of candlelight on crystal. You have assigned seats carefully, alternating men and women, separating married couples, placing conversationalists next to shy guests who need drawing out. Everyone finds their name card, pulls out their chair, settles in. The first course arrives, chilled consommé served in shallow bowls, garnished with a single chive. Conversation pauses as everyone tastes, murmurs appreciation. The soup is clear, flavourful, exactly the right temperature. Helen has done it perfectly. Between courses you orchestrate conversation, asking questions that prompt stories, steering away from topics too controversial or dull. Politics is avoided. Business is discussed only in general terms. The talk circles around safe subjects, upcoming vacations, children's schools, a new restaurant that opened downtown. You laugh at jokes, nod at opinions, keep the energy light and pleasant. The roast beef arrives, perfectly pink in the centre, sliced thin and arranged on a platter. Yorkshire pudding, golden and puffed. Asparagus glistening with butter. Your husband carves at the head of the table, a ritual that establishes his role as provider, even though Helen did all the actual work. Plates are filled, passed, accepted with murmurs of delight. By dessert, a moulded Bavarian cream that wobbles elegantly on its serving plate, the party has hit its rhythm. Guests are relaxed, animated, the wine flowing freely enough to loosen tongues, but not so much that anyone becomes inappropriate. You catch your husband's eye across the table and he smiles, a rare moment of connection that says, "We did it. We pulled it off." After dinner, the women retire to the living room for coffee, while the men retreat to the library for cigars and brandy. This division is automatic, expected, no one questions it. You serve coffee from a silver pot past cream and sugar, listen to the women discuss their children, their decorators, the latest fashions. The conversation is pleasant, meaningless, designed to fill time until the men rejoin you. When the evening ends, you stand at the door accepting compliments, thanking guests for coming, promising to do it again soon. The last car pulls away and you close the door, leaning against it briefly. Your feet ache, your face hurts from smiling. But the party was a success. Everyone said so, and that is what matters. 5 o'clock is cocktail hour, as reliable as sunrise. Your husband mixes drinks at the bar cart in the den, a polished brass affair stocked with gin, whiskey, vermouth, and the various mixers required for martinis and Manhattans. You settle into your usual chair, still wearing your day clothes, though you will change before dinner, and accept a drink served in a chilled glass. The conversation is light. His day at the office, your lunch at the club, plans for the weekend. The alcohol smooths the edges of the day, softens the formality that governs so much of your life. The den is darker than the rest of the house, panelled in walnut and furnished with leather chairs that creak comfortably when you sit. A lamp glows in the corner, casting warm light that never quite reaches the ceiling. This is the most lived-in room in the house, the only space that feels genuinely used rather than staged. The carpet shows wear patterns where feet have travelled the same paths for years. Your husband loosens his tie as he pours, the ice cubes clinking against crystal, with a sound that signals the end of the workday. He makes your drink first, always, gin and tonic with a twist of lime, mixed precisely the way you prefer it, strong but not overpowering. He hands it to you without ceremony, then turns to fix his own. A Manhattan, 2 parts whiskey to 1 part vermouth, a dash of bitters, a maraschino cherry speared on a cocktail pick. You take the first sip and feel the gin spread warmth through your chest. The tonic fizzes gently on your tongue. The lime adds brightness, a small burst of citrus that cuts through the alcohol's weight. This is the taste of transition, of shifting from public self to private self, from the woman who lunched at the club to the woman who exists here in this quiet room, with this man who shares your life but not always your thoughts. He settles into his chair across from you, the leather exhaling under his weight. For a moment, neither of you speaks. The silence is not uncomfortable. It is the silence of 2 people who have run out of necessary conversation but remain content in proximity. Outside, the light is fading, the sky turning from blue to violet. You can hear the faint sound of the gardener's truck pulling away, his workday finished. "How was your day?" he asks finally, and you offer the abbreviated version. Lunch at the club, a bit of shopping, the usual. He nods, sips his drink and launches into his own summary. A meeting that ran long, a difficult client. Office politics are too tedious to recount in detail. You listen with half your attention, nodding at appropriate moments, your mind drifting toward dinner, toward the evening ahead, toward nothing in particular. This is your ritual, performed 5 days a week, sometimes 6. The cocktail hour is sacrosanct, a boundary between the demands of the day and whatever comes next. Even when you have dinner parties or evening plans, you carve out this time, this drink, this small pocket of quiet before the performance resumes. Sometimes friends join you, dropping by after work for a quick drink before heading home. Sometimes it is just the two of you, sitting in companionable near silence. Either way, the rhythm remains the same. The mixing, the pouring, the first sip, the gradual unwinding. Your husband refills his glass halfway through. You decline a second. One is enough to take the edge off without dulling you entirely. He talks a bit more, something about a potential promotion, a reorganization at the firm. You make encouraging sounds, ask the right questions, though you understand only the broad strokes of what he does all day. His work is abstract to you, something involving contracts and clients and conferences that happen in rooms you never enter. The drink is nearly gone now, just ice and a sliver of lime at the bottom of the glass. You hold it a moment longer, savouring the last of the warmth, reluctant to let go of this small pleasure. Your husband drains his Manhattan, stands, stretches. "Time to dress for dinner," he says, and you rise to follow him upstairs. But for these 30 minutes, you are simply two people with drinks, sitting in a room as the day ended, and that in its own way is enough. Your marriage is solid, respectable, exactly what it is supposed to be. You married well, which is to say, you married someone your parents approved of, someone with prospects and a family name that opened doors. There is affection between you, certainly, and respect, but romance is something that belongs to the early years, before children and mortgages and the comfortable routine that now defines your days. You sleep in the same bed, attend the same parties, present a united front to the world. Whether you're happy is a question you rarely ask yourself. You met at a party in 1943, introduced by mutual friends who thought you would suit. He was handsome in his uniform, about to ship out, and the war lent everything an urgency that felt like passion. You wrote letters while he was overseas, careful letters that revealed little but maintained connection. When he returned, the wedding was planned quickly, executed perfectly, attended by everyone who mattered. The early years were tender, fumbling, earnest. You were learning each other, learning marriage, learning how to build a life from nothing but intention and hope. He worked long hours establishing himself at the firm. You managed the apartment, then the first house, then this house. Children arrived, demanding and consuming, and your attention shifted toward them, toward the endless needs of small people who could not yet care for themselves. Somewhere in that shift, the marriage became less about the two of you and more about the structure you were building together. You became partners in an enterprise, raising children, maintaining status, managing assets, hosting dinners, attending functions. The machinery of your life together required constant maintenance, and there was little energy left for romance, for spontaneity, for the kind of intimacy that requires vulnerability. You sleep in the same bed but on opposite sides, a careful distance maintained even in sleep. You wake at different times. He rises first, showers, dresses, is often gone before you fully wake. You have breakfast alone more often than not. In the evenings, you reconvene briefly for cocktails and dinner, then separate again. He to the den with his papers, you to the living room with your knitting or a book. Sometimes you sit in the same room but engaged in different activities, together but separate like planets in the same orbit that never quite touch. Physical intimacy has become scheduled, predictable, infrequent. Saturday nights usually, after cocktails have relaxed you both enough to cross the invisible boundary that exists between you during the day. It is pleasant, familiar, brief. Neither of you expect fireworks. That kind of passion belongs to movies and novels, not to marriages that have weathered 13 years and 2 children and the grinding routine of real life. You know things about him that no one else knows. The way he clears his throat when he is nervous, the exact spot on his lower back that aches when it rains, his fear of failure, hidden beneath layers of confidence but present in the way he checks and rechecks his work, his disappointment in his father, a man who drank away the family business and died bitter, his hope that he is doing better, being better, building something that will last. He knows things about you too. Your fear of being ordinary, your guilt about the children, the sense that you should be more present, more maternal, more something you cannot quite define. Your occasional loneliness, though you have never said it aloud and he has never asked. He knows by the way you linger too long at parties, reluctant to come home to the empty quiet of the house. There are moments of genuine tenderness, a hand on your shoulder when you're overwhelmed, his quiet pride when you handle a difficult social situation with grace, the way he still opens car doors for you, a small gesture that costs nothing but means he's still trying, your habit of straightening his tie before he leaves for work, a ritual that says, I see you, I care that you look your best. But there are also silences that feel less comfortable. Dinners where conversation dies after 10 minutes and you both chew in quiet. Evenings when he stays late at the office and you suspect it is less about work and more about avoiding home. Nights when you lie awake beside him, listening to him breathe, wondering if this is all there is, if this careful, pleasant, slightly hollow arrangement is what the rest of your life will look like. You do not talk about these things. Talking would require admitting dissatisfaction, and dissatisfaction feels disloyal, ungrateful. You have what you're supposed to have. A good man, a nice home, healthy children, financial security. To want more, to want something different, feels greedy. So you keep performing the marriage, playing your part, and most of the time it feels real enough. Behind your home, connected by a covered walkway, sits a smaller structure, the servants' quarters. This is where your housekeeper and cook live, in simple but comfortable rooms with their own bathroom and a small sitting area. You rarely enter this space. It exists in a separate sphere, a reminder that your comfort depends on labour you prefer not to examine too closely. The people who work for you are kind, efficient and grateful for steady employment. But the gulf between your worlds is wide and unbridgeable, maintained by unspoken rules about where each of you belongs. The quarters were built when the house was, designed to be close enough for convenience but far enough to maintain separation. The building is white clapboard, smaller than a garage, with a pitched roof and 2 windows that face the back garden. A narrow path connects it to the main house, covered by a wooden pergola that provides some shelter from rain. You walk this path perhaps twice a year, usually to deliver Christmas bonuses or discuss some household matter, too delicate for the kitchen. Inside, the quarters are divided into 2 rooms, one for Margaret and one for Helen. Each has a single bed, a dresser, a small closet, and a chair by the window. They share a bathroom between them, tiled in simple white, functional but not luxurious. There is a sitting area with a sofa, a radio, and a hot plate for making tea or warming leftovers from the main house. It is clean, adequate, and profoundly not yours. Margaret has worked for you long enough that her room has accumulated personality. A photograph of her sister on the dresser, a quilt her mother made folded at the foot of the bed, a stack of romance novels on the nightstand, their spines creased from reading, a calendar on the wall marking days off, rare Sundays when she visits family in Queens. The room smells faintly of the lavender sachets she keeps in her drawers, the same scent that lingers on the linens she irons for your bed. Helen's room is sparser, newer. She's been with you only 3 years and has not yet settled in the way Margaret has. A suitcase sits half visible under the bed, as if she's not entirely sure she will stay. A small wooden cross hangs above the headboard. A pair of sensible shoes waits by the door, ready for the walk to the main house at dawn. You pay them well, better than many families in the neighbourhood. Margaret earns $60 a month, Helen $55. Room and board are included, of course, and you provide uniforms, simple grey dresses with white aprons, sturdy shoes, stockings replaced when they run. You give them Sundays off, 2 weeks vacation in the summer, and extra pay for holidays when they work. By the standards of domestic service, these are generous terms, but generosity does not erase the fundamental structure. They call you ma'am. You call them by their first names. They eat their meals in the kitchen after serving yours in the dining room. They enter the main house through the back door. When guests are present, they are expected to be invisible, moving through rooms like ghosts who tidy and serve but do not exist, as people with thoughts or needs or lives beyond their labour. You tell yourself you're kind. You ask about their families, remember birthdays, inquire after their health. When Margaret's mother died, you gave her a week off with pay and sent flowers to the funeral. When Helen needed dental work, you advanced her the money and told her to pay it back whenever she could. These gestures feel significant to you, evidence of your decency. But you also know that kindness within this structure is still just maintenance of the structure itself. You're kind to them the way you're kind to the gardener, the postman, the woman who tailors your dresses. Polite, considerate, grateful for service rendered. But you do not invite them to sit in your living room. You do not ask them their opinions on politics or books or the future. You do not know their dreams or fears or what they think about when they are alone in their rooms at night. The quarters exist behind your house like a secret you prefer not to acknowledge. You depend on the people who live there absolutely, and yet you have arranged your life so that you can pretend their labour is invisible, that your home simply runs itself through some magic that requires no human cost. Sometimes, lying in your comfortable bed under sheets Margaret ironed, eating meals Helen prepared, you feel a flicker of something that might be guilt or might just be awareness. But the feeling passes quickly. This is how things work. This is how they have always worked. And you, comfortable and conflict-averse, are not the one to change it. Tuesday afternoons are reserved for charity work, though the work itself is mostly organisational. You serve on the board of the Hospital Auxiliary, the Symphony Guild, the museum's Women's Committee. Meetings are held in someone's home, around a dining table where coffee and pastries are served on silver trays. You discuss fundraising events, review budgets, assign responsibilities. The work is important, genuinely helpful to the community, but it is also social currency, a way to demonstrate that you care about more than tennis and shopping, that you understand your privilege comes with obligations. Today's meeting is at Patricia's house, a sprawling Tudor with leaded glass windows and a garden so meticulous it looks painted. You arrive promptly at 2, parking behind 3 other Cadillacs in the circular drive. Patricia greets you at the door, cheeks flushed with the particular excitement of hosting, and ushers you into the dining room where the other board members are already gathering. The table is set beautifully. China cups and saucers, a silver coffee service, a tiered stand holding tiny sandwiches and petit fours. Fresh flowers, of course. Linen napkins folded into shapes that require instruction. Patricia has gone to trouble, and everyone murmurs appreciation, though you all know this display is as much performance as the charity work itself. The meeting is called to order by Eleanor, the committee chair, a woman in her 60s with steel grey hair and the organisational skills of a general. She distributes typed agendas, pulls reading glasses from her purse, and begins working through items with brisk efficiency. The hospital's annual gala is 3 months away. Invitations must be designed, printed, mailed. A venue must be confirmed, entertainment secured, auction items solicited from local businesses and generous donors. You're assigned to the auction committee, which means spending the next several weeks making polite phone calls to shop owners and club members requesting donations, a weekend at someone's summer house, a piece of jewellery from the downtown jeweller, theatre tickets, restaurant gift certificates, a painting from a local artist. It is tedious work, requiring charm and persistence, but you are good at it. You know how to ask in a way that makes refusal seem ungracious. The conversation drifts between committee business and gossip, the two often indistinguishable. Someone mentions that the hospital needs new equipment for the children's ward. Someone else mentions that Dr. Harrison's wife has left him, though this is not confirmed and should not be repeated, which of course means it will be. Patricia refills coffee cups, encourages everyone to try the sandwiches, which are cucumber and cream cheese, predictable and perfectly made. There is genuine good in this work, you remind yourself. Last year's gala raised $15,000 for the hospital. The Symphony Guild funds music education programs in schools. The museum committee brings art to people who might otherwise never see it. These are real contributions, meaningful in ways that transcend the social posturing that surrounds them. But the posturing is also real. You notice who volunteers for visible roles, who wants their names on programs and plaques. You notice who actually does the work and who simply shows up for meetings to be seen. You notice the careful hierarchy, who chairs committees, who serves on them, who's excluded entirely. The charity work mirrors the broader social structure, with the same families occupying positions of power, the same names appearing on donor lists, the same careful maintenance of who belongs and who does not. Eleanor assigns final tasks, checks her watch, declares the meeting adjourned. Coffee cups are drained. Pastries, mostly untouched, are politely declined for a second round. You gather your purse, exchange air kisses, promise to follow up on auction donations by Friday. As you leave, Patricia walks you to the door, grips your arm conspiratorially. "I am so glad you're on the auction committee," she whispers. "You're so good at asking for things without seeming desperate." You smile, accepting this as the compliment it is meant to be, though it also feels slightly barbed. The skill she admires is the skill of your class, asking for things while pretending not to need them, soliciting generosity while maintaining that you could do without it. It is a performance you have perfected over years of practice. You drive home through the late afternoon sunlight, your charity work completed for the week. You have done good, or at least you have participated in the machinery that does good. And that, in your world, is often the same thing. Your car is a 1955 Cadillac Eldorado, cream-coloured with chrome that gleams like jewellery. It is longer than most cars, lower, more elegant, with tail fins that sweep upward like wings, and a dashboard fitted with every luxury. Power windows, power seats, air conditioning that actually works. Your husband chose it, but you drive it more often, piloting it to the club, to the market, to afternoon appointments. People notice when you pull up. The Cadillac announces who you are before you step out of it. The car sits in the garage like a yacht in a private marina, protected from weather and dust by a structure built specifically to house it. The garage is attached to the house, accessible through a door in the mudroom, and large enough for 2 vehicles, though you only keep one. The concrete floor is painted grey and swept clean daily. The walls are lined with shelves holding things your husband claims to need. Motor oil, antifreeze, a set of tools he has never used but likes knowing he owns. You approach the car each morning with a small thrill of pleasure that has not diminished in the 6 months since your husband drove it home. The cream paint is immaculate, waxed to a high shine by the chauffeur once a week. The chrome bumpers and trim catchlight like liquid silver. The Cadillac crest on the hood gleams with pride, a symbol that needs no explanation. You open the driver's door, heavy and solid, and slide onto leather seats that smell of luxury and new car, though the newness is fading into something richer, more lived in. The seat adjusts electrically with the push of a button, rising and sliding until you're positioned perfectly behind the wheel. The dashboard stretches before you, a symphony of dials and switches and the oversized speedometer that goes to 120, though you have never exceeded 50. The engine starts with a purr, smooth and powerful, the V8 rumbling beneath the long hood. You let it warm. For a moment, adjusting the rearview mirror, smoothing your gloves, driving gloves, kid leather bought specifically for this car. You pull them on carefully, flexing your fingers, feeling the leather soften and conform. The car glides backward down the driveway as if it weighs nothing, though it is nearly 3 tons of steel and chrome and engineering. Power steering makes turning effortless. Power brakes respond to the lightest pressure. You barely have to work to pilot this machine. It anticipates your needs, responds to your slightest input, makes driving feel less like labour and more like floating. People turn to look when you drive past. The Cadillac commands attention, impossible to ignore even in a neighbourhood full of nice cars. It is longer, sleeker, more obviously expensive than the Buicks and Chryslers your neighbours drive. The tail fins alone are a statement, sweeping up and back in a design that suggests flight, speed, modernity. You're piloting the future, or at least the 1950s version of it. At stoplights, other drivers glance over, assessing, judging, sometimes envious. You look straight ahead, hands positioned correctly at 10 and 2, posture perfect. You're aware of being watched, of representing something. Success, status, arrival. The car does half the work of establishing who you are before you ever open your mouth. The interior is appointed like a living room. Thick carpeting, padded armrests, a radio with push-button tuning that pulls in stations from miles away. The air conditioning, a luxury most cars still lack, keeps the interior cool even in summer heat. You adjust the vents, directing cool air toward your face, and feel grateful for this small comfort that most people cannot afford. Parking at the club, you pull into a spot near the entrance, between 2 other Cadillacs that make yours look less ostentatious by comparison. Here, among your peers, the car is expected rather than exceptional. Still, the valet greets you. By name, opens your door with a flourish, promises to park it in the shade. You step out smoothly, skirt arranged, heels finding pavement, purse tucked under your arm. Behind you, the Cadillac sits cream and gleaming, proof of everything you have become. It is more than transportation. It is identity, distilled into steel and chrome and 2.5 tons of American engineering. When summer arrives, you close up the main house and migrate to Newport, Rhode Island, where your family keeps a cottage. Cottage is a misleading term. The house has 14 rooms, ocean views, and a staff that arrives before you do to open shutters and air out linens. Life in Newport is slower, saltier, filled with tennis matches and sailing and long afternoons on the veranda watching waves break against the rocks. Your husband commutes back to the city for work, arriving Friday evenings and leaving Sunday nights, while you and the children settle into the rhythm of summer society. The house sits on Bellevue Avenue, not quite as grand as the Vanderbilt or Astor estates, but respectable, appropriate to your station. It is shingled in weathered grey, with white trim and a wraparound porch that catches the ocean breeze. The lawn slopes down to a private beach where the children swim under the watchful eye of their nanny. A hedge separates your property from the neighbours, maintaining privacy while allowing you to nod politely when you encounter each other on morning walks. Preparations for the summer begin in late May. Your housekeeper travels to Newport first, spending a week opening the house, uncovering furniture, beating rugs, washing windows that have collected salt spray and grime over the winter. By the time you arrive in early June, the house is spotless, vases filled with fresh hydrangeas cut from the garden, beds made with linens that smell of lavender and sea air. The drive from your suburban home takes 6 hours, the children restless in the back seat asking repeatedly, "When you will arrive?" You pack the Cadillac with suitcases, beach toys, books, the familiar objects that will make the summer house feel like home. Your husband drives, silent and focused, while you navigate with a map spread across your lap, calling out turns. When you finally pull into the driveway, the relief is immediate. The air smells different here, salt and seaweed and the particular green scent of coastal vegetation. The light is brighter, cleaner, unfiltered by city smog. You step out of the car and breathe deeply, feeling tension you did not know you were carrying begin to release. Life in Newport follows a different rhythm than life at home. You wake later, breakfast on the porch in your robe, watching sailboats tack across the bay. There are no appointments to keep, no schedules beyond meals and the occasional social obligation. The days stretch long and lazy, structured only by the tide and the heat. Mornings are for the beach. You walk down with the children carrying towels and umbrellas, a basket packed with sandwiches and lemonade. The sand is warm under your feet, shifting and soft. You spread a blanket, set up the umbrella and settle in with a book while the children play at the water's edge. The nanny watches them carefully, calling warnings when they wade too deep. You read a few pages, then doze, lulled by the sound of waves and gulls. Afternoons are for tennis at the casino. Not a gambling establishment, but a social club with grass courts and a clubhouse where members gather for iced tea and gossip. You play doubles with other women, the ball thwacking back and forth across the net, your movements hampered slightly by the tennis dress that requires you to maintain modesty even while lunging for shots. Afterward you sit in wicker chairs on the veranda fanning yourself, drinking tea so cold it makes your teeth ache. Evenings are for cocktails and dinner parties, rotating through the same families, the same conversations, the same careful performance of summer leisure. You dress for dinner even though you're eating at home, because maintaining standards is part of what summer is about. The formality feels absurd in the heat, but you comply, pinning up your hair, fastening pearls, presenting yourself as the woman you are expected to be. Your husband's weekend visits punctuate the summer, brief intrusions of city energy into the slower coastal pace. He arrives Friday night, tired and rumpled from the train, and immediately wants to know what needs fixing, what requires his attention. You walk him through the house, pointing out the loose shutter, the door that sticks, the faucet that drips. He makes notes, promises to call someone, then mixes himself a drink and disappears onto the porch with the newspaper. By Sunday evening, he is gone again, back to the city and the demands of work. You wave from the porch as his car disappears down Bellevue Avenue, then turn back to the house and the quiet. The children barely notice his absence. They are absorbed in their summer world of swimming and sailing lessons and new friends made at the beach. Summer in Newport is both escape and obligation, a seasonal migration that signals your family's status while also providing genuine relief from the routines that govern the rest of the year. Here you can breathe. Here you can be slightly less vigilant. Here, for a few months, you can pretend that life is as effortless as it appears. The pool at the country club is the centre of summer social life. You arrive late morning carrying a canvas bag with towels, sunscreen, a novel you're only pretending to read. The pool area is divided into invisible zones. Families with young children near the shallow end, teenagers clustered around the diving board, women your age on lounge chairs arranged in conversational clusters. You spread your towel, apply lotion that smells of coconut, and settle in for hours of sun, small talk, and the occasional dip in water kept precisely at 78 degrees. The pool itself is Olympic-sized, tiled in turquoise that makes the water look tropical, surrounded by concrete painted to look like flagstone. Umbrellas dot the perimeter, providing shade for those who cannot or will not tan. Lounge chairs are arranged in careful rows, close enough for conversation but far enough to maintain personal space. A lifeguard sits elevated in a white chair, whistle around his neck, scanning the water with the bored vigilance of someone who has never had to save anyone. You arrive and immediately scan for familiar faces, locating your usual group near the far corner where the sun is strongest. Barbara is already there, slathered in baby oil, her skin browning to a shade that will look weathered by August. Patricia sits under an umbrella, pale and determined to stay that way, reading a magazine and sipping something cold through a straw. You claim the empty chair between them, spreading your towel with practiced efficiency. The canvas bag yields its contents: sunscreen, sunglasses, the novel, a thermos of iced tea you filled before leaving home. You arrange everything within reach, creating your small territory, your claim on this corner of the club. Barbara glances over. Finally, she says, as if you are late, though you are exactly on time. We were starting to think you were not coming. Traffic, you lie, settling into the chair. The cushion is hot against your back, the plastic slats pressing patterns into your skin. You shift until comfortable, then reach for the sunscreen. The lotion is thick and white, smelling of coconut and chemicals, the scent of every summer you have ever known. You smooth it over your arms, your legs, your shoulders, the parts you can reach without assistance. Patricia offers to do your back and you turn, lifting your hair while she applies the lotion in efficient strokes. Her hands are cool, impersonal, the touch of someone performing a service rather than offering intimacy. Conversation starts slowly, requires warming like the day itself. Someone mentions the heat. Someone else mentions the club is considering raising dues. Barbara complains about her children, though the complaint is really a brag. They're so busy with activities she can barely keep track. You murmur sympathetically, offer your own version, admit that coordinating schedules requires a chart. The pool fills gradually. Families arrive, children shrieking and cannonballing, until the lifeguard whistles them into compliance. The teenagers claim the diving board, performing elaborate tricks designed to impress each other, their voices carrying across the water in sharp bursts of laughter. Your own children are somewhere in the mix, supervised by the nanny who sits nearby with a book, glancing up periodically to count heads. By noon, every chair is claimed. The pool hums with activity, bodies moving in and out of water, voices blending into a wall of sound that feels less like noise and more like summer itself. You close your eyes, tilt your face toward the sun, and let the heat soak into your bones. Occasionally you swim, more to cool off than for exercise. The water is shocking after the heat, goosebumps rising on your arms as you wade in from the steps. You swim a few lazy laps, careful not to wet your hair, then float on your back staring at the cloudless sky. The water holds you effortlessly, supporting your weight, rocking you gently. For a moment, you feel weightless, free. But you do not stay long. The pool is for children, for teenagers showing off. Women your age are expected to lounge, to watch, to maintain conversation from the safety of the deck. You climb out, water streaming from your suit, and return to your chair where Patricia hands you a towel without being asked. Lunch is served poolside, sandwiches and fruit salad delivered to your chair by waiters in white jackets. You order the same thing everyone orders, chicken salad on whole wheat dressing on the side. No chips. The sandwich arrives quartered and trimmed of crusts, arranged on a plate with a lemon wedge and a sprig of parsley. You eat half, declare yourself full, and offer the rest to anyone who wants it. The afternoon stretches long and languid. You read a few pages of your novel, lose the thread, set it aside. You apply more sunscreen. You sip iced tea. You contribute to conversations that circle and repeat. Children, husbands, the woman who showed up last week in a scandalously immodest bathing suit. The gossip is gentle, nothing too cutting, just the social glue that holds your group together. By 3 o'clock, you are drowsy and sunburned despite the sunscreen. Your skin feels tight, hot to the touch. You gather your things slowly, reluctant to leave the easy rhythm of the afternoon, but aware that staying longer will only deepen the burn. You wave goodbye to Barbara and Patricia, promise to see them tomorrow and walk to the parking lot where the Cadillac waits in the shade. Inside, the car is still warm, the leather seats holding heat. You start the engine, crank the air conditioning and sit for a moment, letting the cool air wash over you. Another day at the pool, another afternoon spent in careful leisure, performing relaxation as a form of social obligation. Your children attend schools where tuition costs more than most families earn in a year. These are institutions with ivy-covered buildings, small class sizes, Latin and Greek in the curriculum, and alumni networks that will follow your children through life. You attend parent events, write checks for annual giving campaigns, and trust that the school is moulding your children into the kind of people who will inherit your world with grace and competence. Education here is less about facts and more about preparation, learning the codes and courtesies that separate your class from everyone else. The school sits on 100 acres outside the city, a campus of brick and stone buildings arranged around a central green. Trees older than the school itself provide shade in summer, dramatic colour in fall. A chapel anchors one end of the quad, its spire visible from the entrance gate. The whole place feels permanent, established, designed to suggest that the education happening here is not subject to the whims of fashion or the fluctuations of the economy. You enrolled your daughter when she was 6, after a tour and an interview that felt more like an audition. She sat in a strange room with a strange woman and answered questions while you waited in the hallway, hands folded in your lap, heart beating faster than seemed reasonable. When the acceptance letter arrived, you felt relief so profound it surprised you. She was in. She would receive the education you never had, the preparation for a life you're still learning to navigate. Your son followed 2 years later, the process smoother because you knew what to expect. The school accepts siblings almost automatically, a courtesy extended to families already proven acceptable. He wears the same uniform your daughter wears, navy blazer, white shirt, grey slacks or skirt, the school crest embroidered on the breast pocket. They look like miniature adults, serious and responsible, stripped of the messiness that usually defines childhood. The curriculum is rigorous, classical, designed to produce students who can read Latin, recite poetry, discuss philosophy with ease. Your daughter studies geometry and French, learns to diagram sentences, memorizes dates of battles and treaties. Your son, 2 years younger, is already learning cursive, reading chapter books, beginning simple equations. They bring home workloads that seem excessive for their ages, but you are told this is preparation, that children rise to expectations, that rigour builds character. Parent events are frequent, carefully orchestrated to maintain the relationship between school and family. You attend fall open house, winter concerts, spring fairs, award ceremonies where children receive ribbons for excellence in penmanship or citizenship or punctuality. You sit in audiences with other parents, all of you dressed appropriately, all of you clapping at the right moments, all of you silently comparing your children's achievements to everyone else's. The annual giving campaign arrives each November, a letter from the headmaster explaining the school's needs, a new science wing, updated library, scholarships for deserving students. The letter is careful not to specify an amount, but everyone knows the expectation. Families like yours give $1,000, sometimes more. Your husband writes the check without comment, adds it to the pile of charitable deductions, and you return the pledge card with a note expressing your continued support. You volunteer occasionally, chaperoning field trips or helping with fundraisers, though your involvement is limited. The school has staff for most tasks, and parents are encouraged to support from a distance. You attend trustee dinners, where the headmaster explains the school's strategic vision over filet mignon and white wine. You nod, ask polite questions, write another check when the capital campaign launches. The education your children receive is excellent, you have no doubt. They are learning to think, to question, to articulate ideas with clarity and confidence. But they are also learning other things, less explicit, but equally important. They are learning which families matter and which do not. They are learning to recognize class markers, to speak with the accent of educated privilege, to move through the world with the assumption that doors will open for them. They are learning, in other words, to be people like you, and whether that is triumph or tragedy you cannot quite decide. Your kitchen is a marvel of modern convenience, a double oven, a stand mixer, a refrigerator large enough to hold a week's worth of groceries. It is painted cheerful yellow, fitted with custom cabinets and countertops of speckled formica. You almost never cook here. That is your cook's domain, a place where she moves with practiced efficiency, preparing meals from recipes clipped from magazines and passed down through generations. You enter occasionally to discuss the week's menus, to request specific dishes for dinner parties, but mostly you admire it from a distance, a gleaming space that exists more for show than use. The kitchen is larger than some people's living rooms, designed with the latest thinking about efficiency and flow. The sink is double basin stainless steel, deep enough to wash roasting pans. The stove is a 6-burner gas range with a griddle in the centre, professional grade, capable of cooking for a dozen people or more. The refrigerator hums quietly in the corner, its chrome handle gleaming, its interior organised with military precision by Helen, who knows where everything belongs. Cabinets line 3 walls painted yellow to match the walls with glass-fronted uppers that display your good china and everyday dishes. The countertops are clean, uncluttered, interrupted only by the stand mixer and a ceramic canister set that holds flour, sugar, coffee. A window above the sink looks out onto the back garden, providing natural light that makes the yellow paint glow like butter. You stand in the doorway sometimes, watching Helen work. She moves with the confidence of ownership, opening drawers without looking, reaching for pans that live in specific spots, seasoning by instinct rather than measurement. Her domain, her rules. You are a visitor here, tolerated but not quite welcome. The kitchen represents everything modern, everything your mother's generation longed for. No more hauling water, stoking fires, scrubbing cast iron. Everything here is easy. Turn a knob and the burner ignites, flip a switch and the oven heats, open a door and food stays cold without ice. The machines do the work that used to break women's backs and consume their days, and yet you do not use any of it. You cannot remember the last time you cracked an egg in this kitchen, measured flour, stirred a pot. These are not your skills. You were raised to manage a kitchen, not to work in one. Your role is to plan menus, to approve recipes, to taste finished dishes and offer gentle suggestions. The actual labour belongs to someone else. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to cook for your family. to stand at the stove and brown meat, to knead dough on the counter, to pull a cake from the oven and feel the satisfaction of having made something with your own hands. But the wondering never translates to action. You would not know where to start, and Helen is here, paid to do this work, expecting to do this work, and displacing her would be awkward, inappropriate, a violation of the arrangement that governs your household. So the kitchen remains beautiful and unused by you, a stage set for a play in which you are not the lead, and you, standing in the doorway, remain an admirer of this gleaming space, grateful for its existence but estranged from its purpose. Your husband's world and your world overlap but rarely merge. He leaves for the office each morning at 7:30, returns at 6, spends his days in meetings and phone calls and decisions you do not ask about. Your days are filled with household management, social obligations, volunteer work, the 1,000 small tasks that keep your home and family running smoothly. At dinner parties, the men retreat to the den for cigars and business talk, while the women gather in the living room for coffee and gossip. This division is so ingrained you barely notice it anymore. The separation begins at breakfast. He reads the business section while you read household announcements and society pages. His concerns are profit margins, client relations, office politics. Yours are school schedules, social calendars, which charity needs volunteers. You inhabit the same house, but different universes, parallel tracks that run alongside each other without touching. When he talks about work, you listen with polite interest but understand only the broad strokes. Contracts, negotiations, partnerships, the language of business that sounds almost like English but means something slightly different. You nod at appropriate moments, ask questions designed to show engagement. How did the client respond? What did the senior partners think? But his answers are often technical, abstract, difficult to visualize. Your work is equally foreign to him. He does not understand the intricacies of running a household, the negotiation required to manage staff, the planning that goes into a dinner party, the social calculus of who to invite and where to seat them. When you mention these things, he nods absently, clearly thinking about something else. This is your domain, he seems to say. Handle it. The division extends to social gatherings. At dinner parties, after the meal is finished and coffee is served, the separation happens automatically. The men rise almost in unison, drift toward the den or library where your husband has set out cigars and brandy. They close the door, and for the next hour they talk about things you're not privy to. Business deals, investments, the market, politics beyond the superficial. The women remain in the living room, rearranging themselves on sofas and chairs, accepting coffee from you or your housekeeper. The conversation here is different. Children's schools, decorating decisions, upcoming social events, the health of aging parents. Also gossip, though it is never called that. Observations about who is struggling financially, whose marriage seems strained, who was seen with whom and what it might mean. This is how things work. This is how they have always worked, at least in your lifetime, and probably in your mother's lifetime, and likely stretching back further than anyone cares to trace. Men handle the public world, business, money, politics, decisions that shape the future. Women handle the private world, home, children, social relationships, the invisible work that makes the public world possible. You do not question it, not aloud. To question would be to suggest dissatisfaction, and dissatisfaction with an arrangement so fundamental would mark you as difficult, ungrateful, unwilling to accept your proper role. So you stay in your lane, manage your sphere, and watch your husband disappear into his, and you tell yourself that this separation is natural, inevitable, the way things are meant to be. But sometimes, late at night, you wonder what it would be like to have a marriage that was not divided. to talk about work and ideas and the world beyond these careful boundaries, to be partners not just in producing children and managing assets, but in thinking, questioning, building something together that was more than the sum of carefully separated parts. The thought is dangerous, disruptive, so you let it go. Downtown, the department stores rise like temples to commerce, multi-story palaces with marble floors, brass elevators operated by uniformed attendants, and floor after floor of merchandise displayed like art. You are known here, greeted by name, guided to your preferred departments by sales associates who remember your last purchase and can suggest items you did not know you needed. Shopping is leisurely, civilized, punctuated by breaks in the tea room where lunch is served in China, and the background music is always instrumental and soothing. You push through the revolving door into the cool, perfumed air of the main floor. The transition is immediate, from the heat and noise of the street to this hushed, carpeted sanctuary where everything gleams. The cosmetics counters stretch before you like an altar, glass cases displaying lipsticks and powders and creams in elegant packaging, saleswomen in crisp uniforms waiting to demonstrate, to suggest, to transform. Mrs. "Morrison," a voice calls, and you turn to see Eleanor from the glove counter already approaching with a smile. "We just received the new fall collection. I set aside a pair in your size. You had not come for gloves, but this is how it works. The store knows what you need before you do." Eleanor guides you to her counter, pulls out a box wrapped in tissue paper, and extracts a pair of dove-grey kid leather gloves, soft as butter, lined in silk. You slip one on, flexing your fingers, admiring the fit. Perfect, as you knew it would be. You take both pairs, the grey and a cream she insists will be essential for spring. The elevator operator, a young man in a burgundy uniform with brass buttons, greets you by name and slides the brass gate closed with a satisfying clang. "Third floor, madam?" He already knows. Third floor is ladies' sportswear, where you browse most frequently. The elevator rises smoothly. Numbers lighting above the door as you pass each floor. The operator calls them out. Anyway, his voice trained to the same pleasant monotone. Second floor, lingerie and foundations. Third floor, ladies' sportswear and daywear. The gate opens and you step onto thick carpet that muffles your footsteps. This floor is quieter, less crowded than cosmetics. Clothing hangs on circular racks, organised by colour and size, each piece carefully spaced to allow proper viewing. Mannequins pose near the windows, dressed in outfits styled to suggest a lifestyle. One in tennis whites with a racket, another in a cocktail dress with evening bag, a third in a travelling suit with coordinating luggage. Your sales associate, Dorothy, materialises from behind a rack of cashmere sweaters. She's worked this floor for 12 years and knows your wardrobe nearly as well as you do. "I pulled several pieces for you," she says, gesturing toward a fitting room in the corner. "Just some things I thought you might like." The fitting room is more sitting room than closet. Upholstered chair, full length, mirror, soft lighting that flatters without lying. Hanging on the rod are 3 dresses, 2 skirts, a jacket in a colour described as celadon, that you would never have chosen yourself but immediately love. Dorothy has an eye. She understands your taste, your lifestyle, what will work and what will languish unworn in your closet. You try each piece, stepping out to show Dorothy, who circles you with pins in her mouth, tugging at shoulders, smoothing hems, murmuring about alterations. The celadon jacket needs the sleeves shortened. One dress fits perfectly as is. A skirt requires taking in at the waist. All of this will be done, of course, at no extra charge, and the items will be delivered to your home within the week. When you finish, Dorothy tallies the purchases on a slip of paper, her handwriting elegant and precise. She never mentions the total. You sign the slip, charging it to your husband's account, and accept her assurance that everything will be ready by Thursday, before Leaving, you stop in the tea room on the mezzanine level. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, a pianist playing something light and forgettable. You order chicken salad and iced tea, the same thing you always order, and sit by the window watching shoppers move through the aisles below. The food arrives on good china, the chicken salad pale and perfect, garnished with a curl of orange peel and a sprig of parsley. You eat slowly, savouring not the food but the experience, the civility of it all. Here, shopping is not a chore but an event, a ritual that confirms your place in the world. The store knows you, anticipates your needs, treats you with deference that feels like respect, but is really just excellent customer service purchased by years of patronage. You finish your tea, leave a generous tip for the waitress who called you madam, and descend the marble stairs to the street. The packages will arrive Thursday. The gloves and the celadon jacket and the dress that fit perfectly. You will unwrap them in your bedroom, admire them again in different light, and hang them in your closet where they will wait for the right occasion to justify their purchase. The television set arrived 2 years ago, a massive wooden console that occupies an entire corner of the den. Your family gathers around it several evenings a week, watching variety shows and westerns and the news in flickering black and white. Your husband reads the newspaper while the TV plays. Your children sit cross-legged on the carpet, mesmerised. You knit or flip through magazines, only half watching, but the television has changed something fundamental about evenings at home, filling the silence that used to be filled with conversation or radio or nothing at all. The console is furniture first, television second. A substantial piece of walnut cabinetry with spindle legs and brass hardware, designed to look dignified in a way that a bare screen never could. The television itself is hidden behind doors that close when not in use, maintaining the pretense that this is a credenza rather than an appliance. When the doors are open, the screen glows pale grey, 17 inches of curved glass that casts flickering light across the room. Your husband turns it on at 6:30, after cocktails but before dinner, to catch the evening news. The set takes a full minute to warm up, the screen gradually brightening from black to grey to a fuzzy image that sharpens as the tubes heat. He adjusts the rabbit ear antenna, moving it fractionally until the picture clears, though it never fully clears. There is always static, always ghostly double images, always the sense that the picture could be better if you just angled the antenna correctly. The news anchor appears, serious and authoritative in dark suit and thin tie, reading from papers on his desk. His voice is deep, reassuring, the voice of someone who knows more than you do and is generously sharing it. He reports on politics, international affairs, local, news, his delivery flat and factual. Your husband watches intently, newspaper folded in his lap, occasionally muttering agreement or disagreement with something the anchor says. After the news comes dinner, and after dinner, the family reconvenes in the den for evening programming. Your children have their favourites: the Lone Ranger on Monday, Lassie on Sunday. They sprawl on the carpet, chins in hands, utterly absorbed in stories about masked heroes and loyal dogs, and problems that resolve neatly in 30 minutes. You watch them watching, their faces lit by the television's glow, and marvel at how completely the screen captures their attention. Your husband prefers westerns. Gunsmoke, Have Gun Will Travel, shows where men solve problems with fists and firearms and terse dialogue. He settles into his chair with a drink, the newspaper now abandoned, and watches with the same focused attention he gave the news. You suspect he identifies with these men, their straightforward morality, their ability to act decisively in a world that makes sense. You're less interested in what is on the screen than in the fact of the screen itself, this new presence in your home that has reorganized family life around its schedule. Meals are timed to avoid missing favorite programs. Bedtimes are negotiated based on what is airing. Conversations are interrupted by someone shushing someone else because something important is happening on television. It is not all bad. The television provides common ground, shared experiences that the family discusses the next day. Your son reenacts scenes from The Lone Ranger. Your daughter asks questions about the news, wanting to understand the world beyond your neighbourhood. Your husband relaxes in a way he rarely does otherwise, his work stress temporarily forgotten. But something has been lost too. The evenings used to hold space for conversation, for reading aloud, for sitting together in comfortable silence that felt connective rather than isolating. Now the silence is different. Each person absorbed in the flickering screen, together in the same room but separate in attention. The television a one-way relationship that demands everything and gives back only distraction. You knit while the television plays, needles clicking in rhythm with dialogue you're not really following, a scarf for your daughter, a sweater for your son. Projects that give your hands something to do while your mind wanders. Occasionally something on the screen catches your attention, a particularly dramatic scene or a beautiful shot, and you look up, watch for a moment, then return to your knitting. By 9 o'clock, the children are in bed, and the programming shifts to adult fare. Dramas, variety shows, late-night news. Your husband watches until the national anthem plays and the screen goes dark, the test pattern appearing with its Indian head and harsh tone. Then he turns off the set, closes the cabinet doors, and the den returns to its former identity as a room with furniture rather than a room organised around a glowing screen. You climb the stairs to bed, and the house is quiet again, the television spell broken until tomorrow evening when the cycle repeats. This is modern life, you think. This is progress. A box that brings the world into your living room, that entertains and informs and mesmerises, that connects you to something larger while somehow making you feel smaller, more passive, less essential to your own evening's entertainment. For all your comfort, there are worries that no amount of wealth can quiet. You worry about your children. Are they happy? Are they being raised right? Will they be prepared for lives that seem increasingly complicated? You worry about your marriage, these silences that have grown longer, the conversations that never go deeper than schedules and logistics. You worry occasionally about the people who work for you, whether you're kind enough, generous enough, whether the distance between you is cruel. These thoughts arrive late at night, in the quiet spaces between sleep and waking, and they are harder to dismiss than you would like. Tonight you lie awake while your husband sleeps beside you, his breathing deep and steady, the sound of someone untroubled by doubt. The bedroom is dark except for moonlight slanting through the curtains, painting silver stripes across the ceiling. You should be asleep. There is no reason to be awake, and yet your mind circles restless, touching worries like worry beads. Your daughter. Is she too serious, too controlled? She never misbehaves, never raises her voice, never demands anything. The teachers praise her constantly. Such a good girl, so well-mannered, such a pleasure to have in class. But you wonder if goodness is costing her something essential. You remember being her age, wild and messy, climbing trees and skinning knees and shouting just to hear your voice carry. She does none of these things. She practices piano without being asked. She keeps her room immaculate. She's becoming a small adult, and you're not sure you're raising a child so much as training a diplomat. Your son worries you differently. He is energetic, enthusiastic, but also anxious in ways he cannot articulate. He asks questions you cannot answer. What if something bad happens? What if I am not good enough? What if people do not like me? You reassure him. Tell him he is wonderful, loved, safe. But the questions keep coming, and you wonder what he senses that you cannot see. Is he absorbing your own anxieties, Is the pressure of this life, the expectations, the constant performance, reaching him earlier than it reached you? Then there is the marriage. You and your husband are partners, certainly. You run the household together, raise the children together, present a unified front to the world. But partnership is not intimacy. You share a bed, but not your thoughts. You coordinate schedules, but not dreams. When did you last talk about something that mattered? When did you last laugh together? Really laugh. The kind of laughter that erases distance. You remember early marriage, when everything felt possible and you stayed up late talking about the future you would build together. Somewhere between then and now, the talking stopped. Now you discuss logistics. Who needs to be where when, what needs fixing, which social obligations require attendance. Functional, efficient, empty. You wonder if he is happy. You wonder if he wonders if you are happy. You wonder if happiness is even the right question, or if you're supposed to settle for something else. Contentment, security, the satisfaction of a life well managed. Maybe happiness is for young people, for people without responsibilities, for people who can afford to prioritize feeling over functioning. And then there are the others, the people whose labour makes your life possible. Margaret, who has cleaned your home for 8 years, who knows your secrets, because she empties your wastebaskets and changes your sheets. Helen, who cooks your meals and eats her own alone in the kitchen. The gardener whose name you still cannot remember. Are you kind enough to them? Generous enough? Or is your kindness just performance? A way of feeling better about a system that benefits you at their expense? You pay them well, you remind yourself. You give them time off. You treat them with respect. But respect within inequality is still inequality. They call you ma'am. They use the back door. They live in quarters behind your house, separate, lesser. Is there a way to be kind within this structure, or does the structure itself make kindness impossible? These thoughts spiral, gaining weight and momentum. You turn onto your side, trying to quiet your mind. Your husband stirs, shifts, settles again without waking. He does not seem troubled by these questions. Perhaps he does not ask them. Perhaps men, or at least men like him, are trained not to. You envy his certainty, his ability to move through the world without second-guessing every choice. He knows his role. He performs it. He sleeps soundly. Meanwhile, you lie here in your comfortable bed, in your beautiful house, surrounded by everything you are supposed to want, and wonder why none of it feels quite like enough. The clock on the nightstand reads 2:15. The house is silent. Outside, a dog barks once, then stops. You close your eyes and try to will yourself towards sleep. Tomorrow there will be tasks, obligations, the familiar routines that keep these questions at bay. But tonight, in the dark, there is only you and your worries. Money cannot solve, comfort cannot quiet, sleep cannot ease. Sunday morning begins with church, a routine as fixed as any other in your week. You attend the Episcopal church downtown, the one with the tall spire and the stained glass windows donated by families whose names are engraved on brass plaques. You sit in the same pew each week, your family, arranged in descending order of height, singing hymns from memory and listening to sermons that are comforting, familiar, and almost never challenging. After the service, you gather on the front steps, shaking hands with the rector and chatting with other families while the children fidget in their Sunday best. The alarm sounds at 7:30, earlier than you would choose if given the option, but church begins at 9, and the preparation required to arrive on time is substantial. Your husband rises first, showering and shaving while you lie in bed a few minutes longer, gathering energy for the performance ahead. Sunday is not a day of rest. Sunday is a day of visibility. You dress carefully, selecting a dress appropriate for worship. Modest neckline, sleeves to the elbow, hemline to mid-calf. Nothing too fashionable, nothing that draws attention. Navy or grey or pale blue, colours that suggest seriousness without severity. Pearls, always pearls. Low heels, a hat required for women, in church, selected to coordinate with the dress without overwhelming it. You check your reflection, adjust the hat, and go to supervise the children. Your daughter is already dressed, her hair brushed and held back with a headband, her patent leather shoes polished to a shine. She sits on her bed reading, waiting patiently. Your son is less prepared, shirt half tucked, tie askew, one shoe on and the other missing. You find the shoe under his bed, help him with the tie, smooth his hair with your palm. He squirms, impatient with the fussiness that Sunday demands. Breakfast is quick, formal, toast and juice at the dining room table, everyone dressed and careful not to spill. No one speaks much. The children are drowsy. Your husband reads the paper. You sip coffee and mentally review the day ahead. Church, then home for lunch, then the afternoon stretches open and unstructured, rare gift of time. The drive downtown takes 15 minutes. Your husband navigates the quiet Sunday streets, while you sit in the passenger seat, gloves in your lap, hat secured with a pin that pokes your scalp if you tilt your head wrong. The children sit in back, silent, looking out the windows at a city that feels different on Sunday mornings. Slower, gentler, emptied of weekday urgency. The church rises before you, stone and Gothic, built in 1892 by a congregation that included your husband's grandparents. You park in the lot behind the building and walk around to the front entrance, joining the stream of families arriving in their Sunday clothes, everyone polished and proper and moving with the careful restraint that church requires. Inside, the sanctuary is cool and dim, light filtering through stained glass in colours too rich for nature, deep blues and crimsons and golds that paint the pews in jewelled tones. The organ plays softly, something Bach or Handel, filling the space with sound that feels ancient, holy. You dip your fingers in the font of holy water, cross, yourself, and proceed down the aisle to your pew. Third row from the back, left side, next to the pillar. You've sat here for 7 years since you joined this church after moving to the neighbourhood. The pew is marked by a small brass plate, in memory of James and Eleanor Patterson, whose daughter now sits 3 rows ahead. Everyone has their place. Everyone knows where they belong. The service proceeds with liturgical precision. Processional hymn, opening prayers, scripture readings delivered by lay people who stand at the lectern and read with solemn attention. Your children share a hymnal, your daughter helping your son find the right page, both of them singing in thin, uncertain voices. Your husband's voice is strong, confident, trained by years of Sunday mornings. You sing quietly, aware of being heard, unwilling to stand out. The rector ascends the pulpit for the sermon. He is 60, greying, beloved by the congregation for his gentleness and his carefully modulated progressivism that challenges no one. Today he speaks about charity, about loving your neighbour, about the responsibility of those who have been blessed to share their blessings with others. You listen, nodding slightly, and write a mental note to increase your pledge to the building fund. Communion is offered but not required. You rise and join the line processing toward the altar rail, kneeling on velvet cushions worn smooth by decades of knees. The rector offers the wafer, the body of Christ, the bread of heaven. You take it on your tongue, dry and flavourless, and wait for the chalice, the blood of Christ, the cup of salvation. You sip wine that is sweet and strong, and return to your pew feeling vaguely virtuous, as if the ritual itself has cleansed something in need of cleansing. This service ends with announcements, upcoming events, reminders about potlucks and committee meetings. Then the recessional hymn, The organs swelling to fill the sanctuary, everyone standing and singing, with the relief of being nearly finished. The rector processes down the aisle, and the congregation files out behind him, emerging into sunlight that feels shocking after the dimness inside. On the front steps, the socializing begins. This is the real purpose of church, you sometimes think. Not worship, but networking, the weekly gathering of families who need to see and be seen. Your husband shakes hands with business associates. You chat with women from the club. The children scatter to find friends, their earlier restraint dissolving into giggles and whispered secrets. The rector stands at the door, shaking every hand, offering personal words to each family. When you reach him, he clasps your hand warmly. "Lovely to see you, Mrs. Morrison. I hope you're well." "Very well, thank you. A beautiful sermon." You have said this every week for 7 years. He has accepted it every week for 7 years. The script is comfortable, unvarying. By 10:30 the crowd is thinning. You gather your children, say final goodbyes and return to the car. Your son pulls at his tie, loosening it the moment he is out of adult sight. Your daughter sits quietly, still contained, still performing goodness. The drive home is silent. You're all tired, drained by the effort of public piety. When you arrive home, your husband disappears to change into comfortable clothes. The children scatter to their rooms. You remove your hat, feeling the relief of the pin's release, and wonder, as you do most Sundays, what you actually believe. You attend church because it is expected, because your family has always attended, because absence would be noted and judged. But faith itself, the kind that sustains and comforts and transforms, that remains elusive, something other people seem to have and you're only performing. You hang your dress in the closet and try not to think about it too hard. As the day winds down and you move through your beautiful home, you cannot help but notice the silence. The house is immaculate, the refrigerator full, the bills paid, the future secure. You have everything you were taught to want: a successful husband, healthy children, a home that appears in the society pages, and yet there are moments, usually in the late afternoon, when the light slants golden through the windows, when you feel the weight of it all, the performance, the distance, the sense that your life is a beautifully decorated stage set where everyone knows their lines, but no one speaks from the heart. You stand in the living room, the formal one that exists for guests who rarely come, and look around at furniture chosen by someone else, arranged according to principles you do not fully understand. Everything matches, everything coordinates, everything is correct. The sofa is upholstered in silk that cannot withstand actual use. The coffee table holds books selected for their bindings rather than their contents. The lamps cast light too dim for reading but perfect for mood. It is beautiful, undeniably beautiful, but it is also lifeless, preserved in a perfection that forbids living. You cannot remember the last time you sat on that sofa, put your feet on that coffee table, used this room for anything other than entertaining people you do not particularly like. You move to the window, looking out at the lawn that stretches green and perfect, maintained by labour you do not perform and barely acknowledge. The garden beds are mulched, the hedges are trimmed, the driveway is swept clean of leaves that fell overnight. Everything is in order, everything is as it should be. But what is it all for? The question arrives unbidden, unwelcome. You have been taught not to ask it, trained to accept that this life, this comfort, this security is the pinnacle of achievement. Women of earlier generations would envy you. Women in other circumstances would trade places in a heartbeat. You have won the lottery of birth and marriage and circumstance, and a question that feels ungrateful, inappropriate, possibly even immoral. And yet the question persists. You think about your days, the careful routine of them, the breakfast you do not prepare, the children you love but barely know, the husband you sleep beside but rarely touch, the friends who are really acquaintances, relationships maintained through lunch dates and charity committees rather than genuine connection, the staff who make your life possible but remain forever distant, their labour invisible, their personhood irrelevant to the smooth functioning of your household. You think about the things you own, the closets full of clothes, the china you use twice a year, the car that announces your status, the jewellery locked in a safe. Possessions accumulated not because you need them or even want them particularly, but because having them is what people in your position do. You think about the performance, the endless performance, dressing appropriately, speaking appropriately, behaving appropriately, smiling when you do not feel happy, agreeing when you do not agree, presenting a version of yourself that is polished, pleasant, acceptable, while the real you, whoever that is, retreats further into invisibility. What would happen, you wonder, if you stopped performing? If you wore comfortable clothes to the club? If you said what you actually thought at lunch? If you sent the staff home and cooked dinner yourself, badly, and served it in the kitchen instead of the dining room? If you told your husband you are lonely? If you let your children see you cry? The thoughts are dangerous, vertiging. They suggest that the life you have built could be different, which means it is a choice, which means you are choosing this, which means you cannot blame circumstance or society or the way things are. You're complicit in your own confinement. The afternoon light is fading now, the room growing dim. You should turn on a lamp. You should start thinking about dinner, about what the evening holds. But you remain at the window, watching shadows lengthen across the lawn, feeling the weight of comfort press against your chest. Wealth has bought you many things: security, status, ease, a life insulated from the struggles that consume most people. You will never worry about hunger, about rent, about affording doctor visits or school fees. Your children will inherit advantages that will carry them through their lives. You have won by conventional measures. You have everything, except perhaps yourself. The thought settles heavy and true. Somewhere in the accumulation of things and the performance of roles and the careful maintenance of appearances, you have misplaced the person you were or might have been. The girl who had opinions and dreams and a sense of self that was not entirely constructed by others' expectations. She is still in there, somewhere. You feel her occasionally, late at night when you cannot sleep, or in rare moments of solitude when the performance can drop. She is restless, curious, hungry for something you cannot name. She wants more than this beautiful empty house. She wants to be known, really known, by someone who sees past the polish to whatever lies beneath. But wanting is dangerous. Wanting disrupts the careful equilibrium you have spent years establishing. Wanting suggests dissatisfaction, and dissatisfaction with a life this privileged feels obscene. So you push the wanting down, smooth your dress, step away from the window. The house needs you. The dinner hour approaches. There are roles to perform, lines to deliver, a stage set waiting for its lead actress to return. You turn on the lamp. The room brightens, shadows retreating to corners. Outside, the lawn settles into twilight, and you, standing in your beautiful living room in your beautiful house, prepare once again to be the beautiful woman everyone expects. The cost of comfort, you think, is comfort itself. The price of having everything is the creeping suspicion that none of it matters. But this thought, like so many others, you keep to yourself, because that is what women of your class, your generation, your circumstances do. You keep things to yourself. You maintain appearances. You smile through the weight of it all, and tomorrow you will do it again. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets, let's take a moment to honour the people who lived this strange, gilded life in 1950s America. They woke in those sprawling bedrooms dressed in clothes that required architecture and moved through days choreographed by expectation and wealth. They smiled through luncheons and charity meetings and dinner parties, performing elegance even when they felt hollow. They raised children they barely knew, managed households run by invisible hands, and carried worries that money could not quiet. It was not a simple life, despite the comfort. Privilege came with its own weight. The pressure to maintain appearances, the distance enforced by class and custom, the loneliness that bloomed even in crowded rooms. They were people, just like us, navigating the gap between what they had and what they needed, between the life they presented and the life they felt. And yet, there was beauty there too. The care they took with details, the rituals that marked their days, the quiet moments on verandas watching the ocean, or in dens with evening cocktails, when the performance could drop and something real could surface, even briefly. Maybe tonight you can carry something small forward from their world. The value of ritual, of slowing down enough to notice light slanting through windows. The importance of asking, truly asking how someone is. The courage it takes to want more, even when you're told you should be grateful for what you have. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a woman standing at a window, watching shadows lengthen, wondering if this is all there is. Sometimes it is the quiet dignity of getting dressed, showing up, performing care even when you do not feel cared for. Sometimes it is simply surviving another beautiful, complicated day. So rest now. Let the weight of the day fall away. Tomorrow will come with its own demands, its own performances, but tonight you are simply here, warm and safe, carrying forward the stories of people who came before. Good night, and may your dreams be gentler than their gilded reality ever was.